Welcome to Module 2 first webinar. We will have another one on Tuesday, on Wednesday, sorry, for you to remember. And yes, welcome to this really, really weird week. I don't know how you are living this situation in your countries. I can tell you that in Spain, Juan Diego and Carlos can corroborate what I'm going to say. We are really overwhelmed by this situation. Even me, who I'm used to work online, but suddenly I'm closed in my room, in my house with my children. I cannot get out. I have to take care of them, but I also need to work. So I have part-time work for next week, so I can organize myself. So this is how it is. So I know that, and I suppose that you are also overwhelmed. So that's why we have decided that we're going to relax a little bit the amount of work we are giving to you. Especially module 2 is quite heavy, I realize it. So please don't be stressed about it. Do it whenever you want. Of course, we prefer that you try to finish before starting the next module, but we will understand perfectly if you cannot, really. Also, I don't know if you have noticed it, but Moodle is getting very slow. I mean, unless you wake up at 6 in the morning, you connect at midnight, it is really, really getting slower than ever. And of course, I contacted the support service, and they say that many schools, institutes are now programming their online courses. So since it's a model cloud, we are all sharing the same server, and that's it. So they will try to solve the situation, but it takes time. So sorry for that also. And yeah, you have two solutions: be more very passionate, or wake up very early, or go back, or work in the night. Yeah.
When your children are in bed, Teresa.
Yeah, but I'm really exhausted. That's what I'm telling. And also, I don't know you well, like you will see, but here following the news, I'm waking up in the night, you know, thinking about the situation, because yeah, situation is getting daunting here in Spain. So, you know, there's going to be a peak, and now people, well, I don't want to say it, but yeah, we are in a very bad situation now. So it's also difficult for us to get to sleep. If you understand me, I mean, it will arrive also into your other countries. Hopefully not, but I think that, yeah, we are following the path of Italy, and we will see the other countries, how they do. Well, as I say in my message, it's good also to do some work so that we are not all the time thinking of this episode. And that's why we are having this webinar. And just before to introduce our guest speaker, just a reminder about some homework that we have put to you about this interactive group that we had distributed you in interactive groups. I don't know if you know how to contact the groups. So you need to go to the chat button, and there you will see the people you should to contact with. Is it okay? I mean, do you understand what I mean? Yeah, you okay? So someone of you has to take the lead on that and just organize whether a Zoom, which is free, or Skype or Hangout or whatever communication tool that you use. Okay. So I'm going to pass the word to Carlos Castell. Carlos Castell, believe it or not, he lives 300 meters away from me, but we cannot see each other. We just only do because we are both of us confined. So he works for the Barcelona Provincial Council, and he's been one of the key persons, not only in Barcelona, but also in Catalonia, to introduce, and in Spain, to introduce ecosystem services and green infrastructure in our country for many years ago. So I don't want to do a spoiler. I will pass the mic to him, but I only say that he has been awarded for that. So please, Carlos, can you share your screen, and when you can talk about this project that you launched like 20 years ago already.
Thank you, Teresa. Good morning, everybody. Hope all you are safe and happy at home or wherever you are. So, as Teresa said, the idea is to present our experience in developing, firstly, a project of mapping natural values in the province of Barcelona, almost 20 years ago. We started in 2002, more or less. And last year, we started to develop the system services and green infrastructure approach in that project. And today, I will explain, firstly, a little bit what's the provincial government and where I work, and about the project, just for you to know what are the concepts and the main data we are using. But I will focus, of course, about stakeholders and communication, both internal and external, because that's the aim of the course. But I will be happy if you have any questions about the project in itself or anything. So if you are happy, I will start with the presentation, and we can stop after each module and do you have any question or any doubt. So please do not hesitate to interrupt. I will try to share the screen and to start presentation. I hope this will work. Let's go. It's okay, yeah? Can you see the presentation? Yeah? Okay. So let's start. So this is the name of the project, CICHEL. This is the acronym of a GIS aimed to know about the values of natural areas network in the province of Barcelona. So first of all, just to introduce who we are and what we do. So in Catalonia, probably know, it's an autonomous region in Spain, and the region has all the competences related to land planning, related to land policies and to environment. And there are 4 provinces in the region of Catalonia. This is Barcelona, Girona, Lleida, Tarragona, and each province has a provincial government, provincial council, coming from centuries ago, and it's still there, that government. And the fact is that we have no direct responsibilities or competences. Let's say, I think that's important for the context of the project. And our reason to exist is mostly to give support to municipalities, because we are part of local government. So our day-to-day work is mostly to give support to municipalities, although we can collaborate with other public administrations and private organizations. But I would like you to keep in mind that we have no competences to approve laws that are compulsory to follow, or nothing about that. So we are a kind of support to municipalities, to local government. And you can see here the data. So we are a province that's really very densely populated, a lot of people living here. This means that it's a very dynamic in terms of socioeconomical processes, and this means a lot of conflicts in land use, of course, and a lot of pressure on natural areas, and in general on ecological processes. You can see the density of population. This is the metropolitan region of Barcelona. This is the coastal part, and then we have another part of the province. This is the inland part that is not so dense populated, is more rural, and I will focus mainly on this area because it's where we have most conflicts and most of the challenges. But you can imagine what's the situation here, and that's why from the the early 70s of last century, the provincial government was the first administration in Spain declaring natural parks. Of the first natural park in Spain is this one here. It's Sant Llorenç del Munt. Teresa and me, we live just here. It is Sant Cugat. This is where we live. Hi, Teresa. And this is the first natural park in Spain in 72. This is the second one in 77, and the other ones declared in 80s and 90s. And trying to have this ring of protected areas around the region of Barcelona because of this high pressure on natural areas, because this high demand of natural areas for leisure, for sport, for tourism, etc. So the provincial government developed at that time a very powerful policy for protecting and for managing these areas. So these natural parks are mainly Mediterranean landscape, as you can imagine, so very nice places with a lot of geological, natural, or architectonical heritage of very, very high importance. And this is the Mont Saint is the biggest one, up more than 1,700 meters of altitude. This means we are moving from very dry Mediterranean landscapes up to landscapes from Central Europe with forests of beech and other ones. So a very, very important places for biodiversity and for landscapes, and all of them are part of Natura 2000 in Catalonia. So we have to accomplish, sorry, all the goals and objectives coming from Europe about Natura 2000, and all that areas here are those areas managed by the provincial government for this. Yeah, so this is our background. So in the let's say 20 years ago, we were planning and managing this network of protected areas. So we had a lot of experience. The results were quite good. We had a nice budget, and we cannot complain about it. But at that time, we realized that because the intensity and the extent of the conflicts and of the pressures on natural area system, we need to go ahead and to do one step forward, and we decide to try to have at least information on natural values in the whole land, not just inside protected areas, but what was happening, what we call the ecological matrix, let's say the whole land, the whole areas. And that's why we started with that project of a GIS, just to have information about what we had in our territory, and just some features of the project. So is a GIS, a geographical information system, that's a different information covers of different characteristics. I will explain later, just to give support to land planning decisions. So for those who had to perform land planning, so to have more information to take the best decision. And this means, as I told you, we have no direct competences. All this information I will show you is putting at service for those administrations who have the responsibility. This is the regional government for regional land planning, and for municipalities and local planning system. The second one, as I told you, is that we are not just interested in the most the areas that are already protected. These are natural parks or even ecological corridors. We are interested in values of all the open areas. So all the areas that have not been transformed, that are not urban areas. So we're interested in all the open areas. So to do this is a huge work, as you can imagine. So a lot of work to do, a lot of different kind of land covers for information. We decided at that time, I think it was a clever decision, that we couldn't do by ourselves all alone, and we decided to do with other administrations and other private partners. That's the main part I will explain to you today, how we collaborate, how was that relationship with them, because it's very difficult to develop a GIS system all alone, but it's even more complicated just to maintain that GIS, to update information. It makes no sense to have information that's 20 years old, because it's not an image of the reality of the land, because it's changing very, very, very quickly. And the last point, the last feature I think it's important, is that from the very beginning we decided that that information had to be shared with everybody. So it was not our information just to have in our box, but we decided to disseminate that information to all the people and to all the teams, organization, and public administration that could use, and that was our aim, that information to be used for everybody, yeah. And just some images of what we are talking about for you to have an idea of the project. So it's a GIS. It's not anything strange. So we have information about geology, about flora and vegetation, fauna, some ecological indicators like connectivity and other ones, about landscape ecology, and some about socioeconomical activities. This means agriculture, this means livestock, this means forest activities, etc. And some examples of what's this at the end. So another interesting characteristic is that we have maps describing our territory, our land. So this means habitats map or vegetation map. But what we wanted to have are maps about value. So we work together with researchers deciding what was the value of that areas because of vegetation, because of fauna, because that was the only way that this information was available to decision makers. They cannot they have not the ability to read a habitats map or a vegetation map. So we need to transform that maps in maps of value that can be applied to land planning by decision makers. So just some examples. This is our province. The darkest the pieces are, the more valuable are in this case because of vegetation. This is the same because of nesting birds. We have the same for mammals or reptiles or some invertebrates as well. This is the importance because of connectivity, for instance, or values because of socioeconomical activities of primary sector. This means agriculture, forestry, livestock, etc., etc. Just this was the first part of the project up to 2000 year, more or less, and no, later, 2010, more or less, we work based on this, on this kind of maps. I will show you later how. And then 9 or 10 years ago, we started, as Teresa said, to introduce the concept of ecosystem services and green infrastructure. And with all that information we already had, and the concepts and methodologies appearing all around the world and in the European Union as well, we started to apply those methodologies to calculate some indicators agreed by international panels for ecosystem services. So just some examples of that we can map some ecological functions, so biodiversity or leaf biomass, as you can see here, because are of importance, are the basis of ecosystem services. We can map some services related to regulation, as air filtering, how vegetation can filter pollution in this area. It's a very important service. Or how important are the areas for pollinators. Pollinators are very important for many crops, for sweet fruits crops that are very important in our region, or related to climate change, where we have a stockage of carbon, so sequestration of CO2, services of provisioning, so provisioning water, or provisioning fuel, provision of wood, or in this case, provision of crops for feeding people, where are the areas more important for provisioning crops, and as well for cultural services that, you know, are difficult to map. And these are examples of how we try to map what areas are most important for recreation opportunities. So for people going there for leisure, for tourism, for sport, for education, for whatever you want. So that's the point where we are now. So mapping that and trying to use these ecosystem services to build up a green infrastructure. So this is the aim right now. So if you want, we can stop here just for the first part.
Impressive, Carlos. I don't know if anyone has a question related to what Carlos has explained. Technical question. I've seen that Veiko has written in the chat that there are some maps also for zoning in Finland. I mean, yeah, the thing of this project is that it was one of the first projects to be done on that. And of course, after the European Union has boosted many other projects in all Europe.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yep.
Let's say you worked with private parties. I saw one of the maps, economical activities, that was farming. Do you have other activities in line as well as than farming? And within the ecosystem services you checked, let's say, are they free services, common goods services, or also remunerated services? Let's say, do you have analysis on, let's say, ecosystem services, but which are, let's say, would generate income as well, eventually not being farming?
For all that, for all the province, these maps, we only have information about. You're talking about provisioning services that are services that usually are paid. So are services that normally are inside of, let's say, market concepts. And so you are producing food, or you are producing timber, or you are producing fuel, and you sell, and somebody is buying it, so you are paid for that.
Yes.
This is what we have for all the province. Other services that can be paid that are, let's say, kind of production are services more related to not primary sector but tertiary sectors, related to tourism, to visitors, and economical activity because of visitors and because an tertiary activity. We have information, in this case, economical information only for the network of protected areas. We have information for the areas, because I didn't say, because there are many things that I will not explain, but these maps of services, we have not maps of monetary value, let's say. So this is on a scale of units of production, let's say, but not the monetary value, the economical value in the market. It can be calculated, as you know, probably, but we are not using that. So we are using that just on a scale from 0 to 10 about how important are that services in every piece of land. But for protected areas, as you have in Finland, I know, we have information that about the real economical value of the services. So what's the economical value of agriculture or forestry or livestock or visitors or I don't know, for restaurants, for enterprises, for guidance inside of national parks and all that. So we have calculated the direct and indirect economical value of that, but just inside protected areas in this case.
Okay.
So I have one question. So I have seen that you have made several very useful analysis for identifying the different ecosystem services that the region or the province actually is offering. So do you already realize how you can utilize this information, for example, towards provincial land use planning or some other policy? So what is the real value of all this data and information?
This is what we'll explain next slides.
Okay.
Are you happy to wait, and then if you want at the end, if you have more questions, we can go deeper, but it's what we will explain up to now. Yeah.
Of course, I have my eyes and ears open. I would just like to ask more about this picture. Do you know how the analysis was made? Like, how did you estimate or assess the different recreation opportunities? And I can read capability, capacity, I think is something that is referred to here.
This is just an example, because cultural services are intangible services, as you know, are difficult. This is a model that was developed in North America called STMAP. I have no time to go in depth, sorry. But this is just the main approach, because there are many different indicators with different weights referring to things that we know that people like for going for leisure tourism or that. So forests, water areas. So there are facilities for visitors. It's those things. So and it's just a general image that I think that it works quite a lot at a regional scale. But when we go down to local scale, I think I have no time to show you some maps, but this information that is 1/50,000, the scale, when we work with municipalities, we do field work, and we are working and scale around 1/5,000. And in this case, the maps of cultural services, we used to do again. So these models do not work at local scale. So in that case, the most easy thing is just to make surveys to people explaining what areas are of most interest for you, because are symbolic, because are places you like, because are places you go every weekend for walking. So this is the way we are mapping cultural services when we work in a local scale. But these models and many other ones developed at international scale, like this one, STMAP for recreation, give you a general idea. What's interesting of this, I haven't, I do not have the slide here, but not to be too long in my explanation, is that this is just a first approach, but then we add a second approach, that is, what's the distance of that area to where people live. So this is why we call here capability. This is the general capability. And the second map is about accessibility as well. So if this area right here, this is Collserola, this part, that is pale green, when we take into account that is surrounded by millions of people, this will become a very, very dark area if we are talking about where people that are using this area is living, are living, sorry. So it's interesting because it gives you an idea of potential, and those peri-urban areas appear very, very powerful, because when we include in your map that this area is surrounded by so many people, this area is becoming more important for services that this area here in the north that can be very nice and wonderful and outstanding beauty, but it's really far away from people. So I think that these models give you that idea. But when we are scaling down to local projects, you have to change in the case of cultural services. This is our experience.
Thank you, Carlos, to be such a good advocate for peri-urban natural parks, that you know that I will be defending them for many, many years.
I am a fan.
We both live by Collserola, and this is our place to go for biking and to relax. But Carlos, I have a question. You being a technique, a biologist, working as a technician in the provincial council, how did you think of this project so big, involving so many big decisions, as you said, no political decisions, when you don't have the competencies? How did you do it?
Yeah, that refers to the next part. This is how we manage inside of the regional government to convince the whole stakeholders, internal stakeholders, about the importance of the project. So we are that technical office for land analysis and planning. So up to that time, 20 years ago, our work was to prepare and to deliver special plans for protected areas and some other projects. So, and we had that idea that we should go further and to have information for decisions at regional scale, at the whole land scale. And we were thinking about it at the in our technical staff, that what important it would be. And at that time, I think that was a key point, was that we have a political opportunity to convince the political responsibles in our area. I will not explain in detail, but in 2002, there was a new law in Spain that, let's say that the law changed completely the background, the context, because in that time, with a very right-wing party, a liberal party, the law said that every piece of land could be a land for building up new infrastructures, new settlements, anything. So if you didn't want to transform a natural area, you should explain the values that area had. I don't know if it's because the regulations are different in every country, but you can imagine that for a landowner, at that time, it was possible to build up new houses or whatever you can imagine everywhere, unless local administration would say, no, this area has a high interest, so you cannot do that transformation. You know, that was a big change. And that was the opportunity we had to convince political responsibles to say, we need information to say in what areas new transformations can be assumed and say, okay, and in what areas we should say no. But we needed information, yeah, behind that decision. And at that point, it was easy to convince our political responsibles that this project was really important, not just for us, but for the whole areas, tourism, infrastructure, building, you know, yeah, that was the first point. So we had a lot of support from our political responsible at that time, and that was the way up to the very top. That was the presidents of the provincial government, and they were convinced very, very easy, because in that case the political situation was in our government, we had a left-wing party that was not really very, very friendly relation with the party, the right wing, who had approved that law. So for the presidents of the government, the support was absolute at that time. And that means what we needed. This is support and resources, saying, okay, let's go on, because as you will see, it's a very long project with many needs, and the support of the president was the way to have the support from other areas of our government that were key areas to work with us. So at political level, all the government of the province was involved in the project, and they involved the other technical offices that we needed, the total absolute collaboration. At some examples, cartography or computing and technology were key areas for us, but many other ones related to economy, related to tourism, related to other areas. And that was the way that they got involved at that time. And when we had this involvement, what we created was a kind of working group, internal working group in the provincial government, with a really close and constant contact and coordination, because mainly the first years that we started to put all the pieces of the project, we needed to work very, very close with them. So the confidence, the alliance with those other departments was absolute, and that was for me one of the keys of the success of the project. This internal involvement. Yeah.
How did you do it? You organize meetings, or it was information that was sent? I mean, in practical terms.
Yeah, with our politicians. So we used to have weekly meetings, and at that time this project was on one of the main subjects of each weekly meeting. Of course, the role of the president was at the political level. So when they have plenary sessions or bilateral meetings with them, but once the project had already been explained to the other technical departments, this contact was really constant by telephone meetings, formal, informal meetings, so meetings with cartography. At the beginning, I think that we were having meetings with computing and technology once a week at least, because we needed to know what kind of program, how should we do it, because we have some internal protocols and things to buy computing systems and all that. So it was a day-to-day work, and the same with cartography, because all the information should be integrated in our cartographical system. So the people from cartography was working with us every day, I think, at the beginning. Then when the project was already going on, it was just from time to time, but was with all these people was face-to-face constant contact. It was really very, very, very nice work with them.
There's a question from Martina Herbat. She's asking if all the involved actors were from the same political option.
Yes, at that time, yes. Yeah.
This helped.
Yes, I can assure you, because we are now in another situation since 1 year ago, and not for this project, but for instance, we are trying to develop now all the policies related to new urban agenda. Probably you hear about it. So how cities in the future should be, and it's much more difficult to have a political agreement, because we have two different parties in the government, and coordination is not so easy. So who is leading what? Who is in charge of what? So there are much more pushing among political parties, and at that time we had the same political color in all the government, and this was easier. Yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Does anyone have another question regarding?
Yes. The title says internal stakeholders. You spoke about government, people, political parties, and administrations, government bodies. Was the information already, let's say that was for preparing eventually the project and going ahead? Once there were results, let's say for cartography of other information, etc., was that reviewed with, let's say, sectorial organizations or private parties, landowners, etc., for verifying that the government information or the administrative information was correct? I put a question because in Flanders, I'm Alec van Havre from Flanders. Let's say we had also similar exercises by the Flemish government, and when the cartography was finalized, there were big problems because the local reality was totally different than what was in the system.
No, in our case, I will show you that when we talk about external stakeholders, there are some stakeholders that can, for instance, municipalities can be seen as internal or external, depending, because we are part of local administration as well. But this focus is just in our areas of or departments, internal ones, so both at political and technical level. But and this was mainly to launch the project, because we needed that basic cartography that we had in the cartography department. We needed computers, we needed servers, we needed softwares, and all that, because as I will show you now later, the information we needed wasn't inside the government. We had to go outside to find that information. So, of course, if we were dealing with something related to economy or tourism, we invited the experts from the government to that meetings. But as you will see, mainly was with external stakeholders, because the information was outside, where in many cases the information just didn't exist at that time. So when we discussed it with external stakeholders about land covers or indicators or whatever, if we thought that some experts from other areas of the government could be of help because they had experience in that area, we invited them. So please, people from tourism or from infrastructure or from social services, come to the meeting with external stakeholders, because your opinion can help us. We invited them, of course, so it was open for everybody. But as you will see, our main focus was with external stakeholders, because that information didn't exist. We had to create at that time.
Yes, Carlos, talking about that, why don't you proceed and explain us what kind of external stakeholders you contact, and how did you establish contact with them, and what agreement did you reach involve them?
Yes, the next part, just to show you a quick map with logos, how many people, how many organizations of different kind were involved. These are just a flash of to try to see the universe of collaborators we had, and so how important was to contact them in a right way and to develop right relationships. So just to go from step by step, this is our government. Let's say these are the internal partners. So let's start with the main partners we had were from academy. So university departments and research centers, because as I told you, most of the information didn't exist at that time. So we had, so we even needed basic information. So we just have, for the whole land, we just had at that time some land use maps and some habitats map that had been used for Natura 2000 declaration, and that was all. So we have maps of some, I don't know, groups of fauna for some parks. We had some information about agriculture in some important areas, but information for the whole province, for the different approaches was that information, just the description, the basic mapping didn't exist. So we needed that to start, because then we needed the assessment maps, as I show you. So we had to go to the basis, that was the academy. So I think that what was important, one of the key points was that me and two more experts in our office, because that office was a very young office created just some years ago. We all came from university, so we had experience in research, and we knew personally people at the university, at the research center, and I think that this confidence and this common language is very useful, because in many cases it's difficult to contact academy or universities, because research and management, we are not using the same language even. So, and I think that one of the strengths of the project is that we had these people working in our department, that we are like bridges between research and how the research is applied in land planning and management. So for the first, we contact people that we already knew, or people that we had heard that there were the key persons in the different fields. I showed you before, geology, botany, zoology, ecology, socioeconomy, etc. And we had meetings with them, many meetings, so start to create confidence and to knowing what we had exactly. And they say, you have some information about that species or that habitat, so and we explaining we need information that's homogeneous for the whole land, and that was really difficult to have the same level of information at the whole province. And we started to make a plan of that lasts many years, because we started with some field work in many cases. So to go to the field to map a species or to map habitats or to map whatever we had to map, then to draw the maps on the computer, to have that description maps, and then to agree indicators, common indicators between researchers and managers to transform this description map into assessment map with values. So, and this lasts 3-4 years in many cases, because we started from the very beginning. And this was a common work that created a lot of confidence, working together in a very friendly atmosphere. I think that, but this is the result of many meetings, face-to-face meetings, yes, monthly at the beginning, sure, and constant in exchange of information and mails and that. So that was a very important part of the work, because this is the core of the this is really the heart of the system, the information coming from research centers and universities. And this is the same from some NGOs, naturalist NGOs that we have in Catalonia, that they had at that time very important information. Now we have much more because of citizen science and all that, but at that time 20 years ago, we just had some naturalist NGOs that had maps of birds, of maps of vegetation, and we contact them, and it was more or less the same, because there were NGOs, but in many cases there were really very professional in terms of methodologies and all that, responsible of NGOs coming from the university as well, so methodologies were not so different. So at the end, I think that university research centers and NGOs were more or less the same approach, because yeah, I don't know if I can explain properly that they were very professional, very expert, all of them. In all the cases, after talking about what we needed, we established agreements with universities or associations or research centers. This means that we sign annual agreements with some economical content, so it was not so expensive as if we had to buy information in a market, let's say, because they were interested as well to develop that project. So for them, it was a new research field. So the cost for us of that was not very expensive, because let's say that all the time that they dedicated to the project was for free, and we just paid if they needed to contract some other people or to buy some resources they needed for field work or for computers or that. I don't know if it's clear that it was an agreement, because we both were interested in that project. So I have to recognize that all the people were really interested in applying the science, because you can find some scientists saying, oh no, I am just interested in my own research. I don't mind if this is useful for society or not. I have to say that all of them say that they wanted to take the information they had or new information and to be applied, because they were willing to help us with that. And the cost was just the added cost of developing the project, but basic cost was assumed by universities and research centers. That was more or less this part of external stakeholders. Then we had another group that was some private consultants that were experts in some areas that we were really interested. I can put the example of connectivity. We had a private company that was internationally recognized as experts in connectivity and fragmentation, and we have to make contracts in this case. So we have to say how much is it and to pay for the information, but at the same time we have to say that the price was quite rational in terms that they were interested as well in developing that, because that was curriculum, that was background for their enterprise to apply in other parts of the world that were they worked at that time. I don't know if I explained properly. So, of course, it was expensive because in some cases it meant at that time to contract people, new people to do things. So this has a cost, and we pay for that. But the price of, let's say, the know-how of that private companies were not applied to the contract, because they were interested as well to apply this new project in their own projects in other parts of the world. So we had to pay, but it was we could take that cost. And the other case that is interesting is we have a very powerful farmers trade union with a technical office that was the office in charge of mapping that primary sector value. I showed you before, agriculture, livestock, forest sector. And in this case, it was quite similar to these agreements that I explained you here, maybe a little bit more expensive because the work was very hard, because they had meetings with farmers in almost all the small municipalities of the province, saying, okay, we are doing this in a little bit in the sense that I think that Alec asked me before. So did you have feedback from other partners? Yes. In this case, the maps that were drawn by that farmers union were shown to farmers of the whole province, saying, hey, do you think that this figure is really the figure of the situation of agriculture in the province? You think that value of agriculture here is higher than here? Oh, yes, I'm not, yes. So many meetings every week. We had a meeting with local farmers explaining the project, because we wanted them to agree with this image that we were giving about agriculture or forestry in the province. So, and this was really a very strong effort in terms of traveling at every corner of the province, and that has a cost, and we paid for this additional cost for the farmers union, of course. And the last one was other public administration, some local administration really interested, mainly in the heart of the Barcelona metropolitan area, and the regional government of Catalonia. And in this case, because it was a common interest for common policies, that were the relationship with visiting them, explaining the projects, and signing agreements with this public administration, and of course without economical content. We were all, because we were all public administrations, and we had common objectives, and we signed an agreement saying, I am putting this to the common work. We can afford this information we have. We can afford this experience. We can afford these experts' involvement and that. I think that is more or less the situation. And after that, we in addition to these meetings with each external partner, that I can promise you that at the beginning were weekly meetings with some of this, because very intense relationship. Then the meetings were not so often. And I think what's important is that we created a kind of working group with common workshops with all the stakeholders. This is an example of one of the meetings that every 3 months at the beginning, and every year when we were updating information, we had plenary sessions with all the stakeholders to share. And people from, I don't know, botanists explain how they were calculating the value because of botany, and farmers saying, did you think that this value can be related with some agricultural indicators? I don't know. So to try not to work in silos with every team, but to have plenary sessions that were really very, very, for us, were very powerful and very inspiring, because that mixture of experts from different fields gave us an additional benefit, I think, for the project, not just to work in separated meetings. Yeah.
Then, Carlos, yes, related to that, how do you manage, I mean, conflict of interest? In fact, Juan Diego Lopez from Murcia, from La Manga de Malmenor, he's asking, yeah, how you manage, for example, the agricultural sector with other kind of sectors, being natural or industrial. Were there any conflicts there in these meetings?
No, not really, because I have to say that 80% of the approaches came from different fields of natural resources approach, let's say. So people from geology or botany or vegetation of ecology, etc. And what we had at that time were a kind of scientific discussion in terms of, do you think that it's so important that to give that weight to that indicator, this kind of things. But what I think that we all learned at that time, that probably from an intuitive point of view, we already knew, but we have information on the table, is that the land is so different if you see from vegetation or ecology or fauna or geology point of view, that I think for the first time we realized that areas that had no interest for botanists at all, that for them that was just button, for fauna groups were really the most important areas, that for the very first time we had all that information together, and that was I think a very important concept that we knew probably, but we didn't have our real data with values and say, but how much important is that than the other one? And the debates were really interesting from that scientific point of view. Should we try to put all that indicators together and have a global indicator of value or not, for instance? That was a really interesting scientific debate we had for a long time. Related to conflicts, the main conflicts could be from primary sector approach, but I think that there were quite scientific, we can say, in terms that we put on the table value for agriculture, saying, okay, this area that has value for agriculture can have value for botany or for fauna as well, or not. And this can be even interesting for our sector as farmers, because if in this province, we have to say that agriculture is really very threatened as well because of new developments and new transformations. So for them, the fact of having other values than just the food production was interesting at that time. So conflicts will arrive later when I show you examples of how we use for decision for taking decisions about land use and land planning. But at this point, I think that the debates were really very, very profitable in terms that all the teams gave their own point of view, but were open to accept that piece of land had other values as well, because I think that at the end, all the people in that meetings at that plenary session had the same final objective, is to try to keep a balanced land, a protected land in terms of natural values, but productive values as well. I think we were all quite open mind. So not people to say, we have to preserve everything, we cannot touch a single leaf or a single rock. Another one saying, we have to put everything in culture for agriculture and all that. So we were all quite open mind at that time.
Okay, just well, I miss, for example, the sector of tourist sector, which would be tertiary, or I don't know, you will talk this later when you need, when you will talk about how to make the decisions. But also, Juan Diego is asking about the building sector or industrial agriculture. And another question, and then also is that Timea is asking about the financial background of the project. What do you mean by we paid? And then we will pass the following
Okay.
section of the
Okay.
the speech.
I can start from the last question. So when I say we pay, we mean we pay. In Catalonia, we pay means we pay. Just joking. Just kidding. No, that means that every year we had contracts, public contracts and agreements with different stakeholders. I show you before, so that agreements, that contracts had an economical part that came from our government. So the global cost of the project starting in 2003 up to now, that now we are just updating information and mapping some more things, like I show you ecosystem services, for instance. We are talking about 2 million euros cost. So we have hundreds of land covers, I have to say. At the end, synthesis land covers can be maybe 20 that are the most useful. But sometimes for some projects, we need to go to other land covers more specific, because we need very specific information, detailed information about, I don't know, vegetation or agriculture, and we have a lot of covers related to agriculture. So what kind of crops, what production, what natural important has some crops for as habitats, etc. But so we have hundreds of land covers, and the cost of that is, in this 15 years period, is around 2 million euros, coming mainly from our budget. That's because it was important to have this political support, and some money came in from European projects as well. Maybe around 15% of income is coming, of money is coming from some European projects that we had access during that time. Right now, the maintenance cost of the project is maybe around 10,000 or 15,000 euros per year, just to update some things. So it's very low. So the cost was very high at the beginning. Related to other sectors, we decided just to involve in this assessment the sectors that could give a whole land approach about the value. So we thought about tourism, but it was difficult at that time, because how can you map the value for tourism? Some dots saying, okay, there's a place here with a lot of people going there, paying for activities, paying for, I don't know, for eating in a restaurant or that. So we talked to some tourism experts, and at that time we were not, we said that we couldn't imagine how to map that. So I think that more or less now with cultural services related to green infrastructure, we can have a kind of approach more or less related to tourism, and the same we can say for other provisioning services. That goes the same when we are talking about new developments or new infrastructures or that we thought that if we should use already existing regulations on land planning, and we decide no to use. So we have maps about the real situation at that time. From an airplane, we can say the land, and you do not know if that's building land and that it's protected area. No, it's the values of the real things that we can test. Then you can take the regulations already existing to overlap and say, wow, we have a conflict there because that area of great importance is a building land that can be developed next years. And then you can propose to political responsibles, maybe we should move that regulations to another part and to protect that area, you know. So we decided to forget about already existing regulations. And when we are overlapping, we will see what conflicts appear. That was more or less the approach. I can show you some examples if you want, related, for instance, if you want, I can give the examples of municipalities and regional government, and then to open for more questions if you want, if you agree.
Yes, yeah. These are your most important stakeholders, your clients somehow.
Yeah.
The ones who going to be using this platform, the seed chain.
Yeah, because all our proposals to our political responsible at the end have to deal absolutely with helping municipalities, because it's our reason to exist as provincial government. So that were our main objective. What we did was, there were some municipalities that were at that time really worried about that legislation, that laws, that everything could be done anywhere. So what we did was to start working with that municipalities that wanted to stop some new developments, and we start using our project at a more detailed scale, at local scale. If you can see, this is 130,000, I think, that map. This is one example. This is the first municipality that we really applied that project. Say, let's go to a local area, municipality, let's work with them, with the local political responsibles. And what we did was that, so was a synthesis map of the areas of most value because of natural values for agriculture. That's this orange, yeah, it seems orange areas. These areas are real big importance for nature, and those area here was an area of big importance for connectivity between two natural parks. There's a natural park here, another one here, and this range here is really of importance. And after that that technical report we prepared for the municipality, it was the municipality who protected this area. They approved a special plan to protect this 500 areas range here because of the importance for connectivity and because of the importance for local people for leisure, for walking, for running, and all that. So they were afraid that landowners at that time started with development projects in this area. So that was one of the first municipalities we worked at that time. And we did this in 5 or 6 municipalities as pilot projects and as examples for them and for us to try. No, we were training, we were work in progress. So because we were the first one that were interested in and to really develop the project applying to land planning. And we did this with 4 or 5 municipalities during the 2 or 3 first years of the project. And after that, when we had tested the proposal, what we did was to include it in the general proposals that the provincial government gives to municipalities. Every year, the government is approving what we call the catalog of services, saying to municipalities, hey, this year we can help you, we can give our support for this and this and this and this and this. So when we had already tested how to work at municipal level, we opened it to the annual support proposed of the provincial government, what we call this catalog of services. There are some technical services, some economical services. There was a technical support, of course, and this is the map. This is an old map showing how many municipalities ask us for support. This is not compulsory. That can do the local planning as they did all the time. So just contracting an external company and doing the way they did. So this is just voluntary for them to ask us for a report, for a survey, saying, hey, take care when you are planning your land at local level to take into account these values because of the different maps I show you. So can you see many municipalities were interested and asked us for support, and at the end, this means, sorry about the thing that, at the end, this means that they use this for local planning. So for the responsibility they had for local planning, so when they were approving local plans, they were taking into account all that information I show you. In addition to this, every year we offer training course for local experts, for local technicians. This mean architects, this mean engineers, this mean environmentalists, this mean biologists working in municipalities that came to training courses that we were giving for free twice a year at the beginning, now just once a year. And that was a way to disseminate that information and that proposals. And another step that we opened after mapping ecosystem services, and was, I think, a successful approach, was to say, hey, when you are planning for your local plan, let's say, so when you are approving your local land planning, you can incorporate, to take into account, to approve your local green infrastructure, we call. So after mapping all ecosystem services I showed you before, saying, okay, in your municipality, these brown areas are areas of interest for agriculture. Please protect when you are approving your local plans, and give all the support to local farmers to go on with agriculture. And even, please try to recover areas of big importance for agriculture that now are not under production because of different conflicts of land use. So these are examples. Or please, these areas should develop local, start forest management, because our forests, with a lot of problems of wildfire, diseases, etc., because of lack of management, please try to put under management these forests because are of local importance for you. Or these areas are areas of interest for cultural services because are the areas where the citizens are going for walking or for running or for biking, or areas of interest because of local heritage. So that's what I told you before, where when you are working at lower scales, you have to deal with some points that are really very important at that scale that are not appearing at regional scales. So I think that was a very good initiative because these things are very easy to understand for a mayor or for a local government. If you are talking about the health of citizens, you are talking about having food production very close, organic food and all that is easy to understand. It's easier that if you are talking about, I don't know, European directive about birds and Annex 4 of, this is difficult to understand for a local government. But you are talking about well-being and health of people because you have food, you have areas to go for biking or hiking or just to relax. It's very easy to understand. So many municipalities got interested in this green infrastructure and developing local green infrastructure and including this in the local land planning. And the next step was to say, okay, if you have this, because we map all this and we agreed with you these areas of green infrastructure, we will help you in developing these projects I told you about recovering agriculture, of putting into management some forest areas. So we started with a new line of support, with some economical support, for instance, to manage rivers. So to move from concrete walls in the riversides and to change it into this kind of natural riversides with some promenades along the river, or with some new humid areas for biodiversity, or we help them in restoring areas that have been burned, affected by wildfire. So if you have this local infrastructure plan, we will help you in recovering, restoring these areas, or starting this forest management I told you before, or to recovering some areas of interest for livestock. So with water points, or helping local farmers with areas of interest for livestock, or the same for agriculture, areas with problems of erosion, in this case of watering areas for agriculture, or in managing peri-urban areas that are really very of interest in the region of Barcelona. So planting trees or managing the area, in this case mainly for the neighborhood, for having real green areas for leisure, for relax, for sport. So it was that was a way to involve municipalities, because all these things are really of interest for municipalities. So let's plan green infrastructure following the maps we have of values, and then let's start managing together these areas with money coming from Europe, money coming from the provincial government. So that's it's really a hook for municipalities to get involved, because this means real action for benefit of them. Yeah, this is just very quickly some examples of how we work with municipalities. And just another example of how we work with the regional government is the government of Catalonia is the one with the responsibility of regional planning. So the planning at the higher scale. And in this case, we had the request because we got the information, we got that land covers I show you. Because of that, the region of Catalonia, the Department of Land Planning, asked us, please, to help them in mapping the values as a basis for the regional planning. I cannot give you details, but these are areas of interest for agriculture, for connectivity, for natural habitats, etc. And at the end, the provincial council, although we had no responsibility by law, because we got that information I showed you before, we were at the table where the decisions were taken. So we shared table with some municipalities, with regional government, to decide at the end to protect 70% of the region of Barcelona, because we had the information to justify the protection. So we said, this area is very important for this, for that, for that, for that, for that. So at the end, that regional plan protected 70% of the region. So that's a lot, because protected areas before that plan was just 30% of the region. And most of the decision of that was because we had real scientific information about the values we had there. Without that, I can swear that 70% was not protected. So that real good updated scientific information was really the basis of that protection. And we could be in that table without having any competence by law, because we were the ones who could explain that information and saying, okay, maybe that part is not so important. We can, that new infrastructure that we need can be moved from here to there, or that new settlement, that new building road can be put there because, okay, this is an area of importance, but we already have another one similar already protected. So we were in that table because of that. So in the table where decisions were taken at the regional scale. So
Without doubt, Carlos, information is power. We are really, I mean, as a citizen, I'm really grateful that you did, your team, you did this work, because this is, of course, has been a consequence, yes, as you've seen, of protection of 70% of the Barcelona metropolitan region. So, and how did you also disseminate this information? What actions do you take to disseminate it outside?
Just this point. I am talking a lot. It's very late. I'm sorry about it. As you said, information is power. And I think what's important is that that information was not our information, in terms that we got no any interest that an area has a highest value than the other one. It was scientific information. So we were just the people. We took that from experts and put on the table. So it was not our interest. So I think that important as well, that is rigorous and scientific information, and that information was opened for free from the very beginning. I think that's important. The last point is dissemination. That's not my map that I have in my box and now I am putting on the table for land planning decisions. No, that was open from the very beginning. Anyone could use, and in fact, many people were using that information, because I'd say from the very beginning, that information was open for free in our website. That's the website address. If you enter in maps and products, from the day the first map was produced, anybody from any part of the world could click here and enter into a free map server and have and use all the information. So absolute transparency. This is paid with public funding. So this information belongs to everybody. That was our point. So, and many people were using that information. So I think that was quite easy to use it in these decisions, because people was already used to see that kind of information, because the only one we had at that time and was coming from scientific world. So I think this is an important way. So showing the information at almost at real time online. Every map was being uploaded here. And the other thing I told you, that information, that project was presented by scientists in international conference and writing in international review papers. So it's not my map, this map about the importance of birds or the importance of reptiles or connectivity, that the experts in each field were the ones who were presenting the project in international conferences and discussing methodologies and discussing whatever you want. I think that gives a credibility, let's say, a reliability to the information, because it's transparent, absolutely. And the other things we did was to publish many different kind of hard supports, posters, leaflets, more for dissemination, more technical ones, addressed to population, addressed to political responsibles, addressed to experts. So explaining what's the project, how can you apply at different scales, etc., etc. And I think that this helped us as well. And at the end, we participated, as we told you, in different European projects. Like this is the last one, called Green Infrastructure Network. We transfer this to other regions because they asked us. This is the case of Chile, for instance, that to Talca region try to start a similar project, and within the framework of this green infrastructure, for instance, a region from the Netherlands, in Flevoland, that were the leaders of the project, they applied the same concept to try to put in value agricultural land because of natural inputs as well, or in a county in Ireland was developed similar projects, or in Hungary they applied to 2 different national parks. We have open courses and workshops everywhere explaining, so many different people can come and know about the project. And what gave us a lot of visibility as well were 2 international awards that we received. The first one, an European one from public this is for public administrations. This is APA. This is an institution in Europe for public administrations that gives yearly in an international award. And the other one was we are very proud in United Nations. We got in 2012 the prize, the award for the best practice in applying innovation and new technologies to delivering public administration responsibilities. And I think that all together is giving us a lot of visibility in Catalonia, in Spain, in Europe. I think it's.
I think to give you a big thank you, we should all switch on our cameras, and we will thank you all of us together, because Carlos, this has been a very interesting project. I'm sorry for the background noise. This is the bad part of sharing my desk, my room with my husband, who I think is printing things. So I will leave him, perhaps Neil, to make the closing, because it's going to get worse.
Yeah, tell Roger to put the printer off. It's bad for the environment, Teresa. Okay. Listen, Carles, that was super inspirational. Thank you so much. I first met Carles in Barcelona many years ago. I think it was in about 2007, 2008 or something. And that was obviously a very early stage of this project. But the work that's been achieved is so important and so amazing. The quality of the work that's been achieved is so good. And for me, I think the thing that comes over most clearly is that there was a shared vision, Carles, and you mobilized the expertise of stakeholders that could identify with that vision and share it and communicate it effectively to other sectors that probably, could potentially have had other priorities. But once you build up that momentum and that political will, then a lot of good things can follow from that. So thank you ever so much, Carles, and keep well. You've been struggling with a cough through this presentation. I hope you're okay.
No, thank you, Neil. And when we explain this in many parts of Europe and the world, that in many cases people what people say is, oh, but this is too difficult, too expensive, so such huge information. But I am saying exactly what you say. So for me, the important is the concept. So talk to all the stakeholders and try to mobilize the information you have. If you just have one covered information, let's go and use that. It's better than nothing. So, and in Hungary, in Chile, in Ireland, everywhere, when you talk to different stakeholders, always some information is appearing. So use it, put on the right table when the decisions have to be taken, share that information, use that map to talk about conflicts in land use from a real basis, not just from intuitions of saying, okay, look to this map where we have conflicts and try to agree for the best land planning decisions. So for me, the basis is that if you have 200 land covers, okay, let's go on. And you have just two, use that two you have. But what's important is what's behind this, to talk to different sectors, to sit together, to share the information, and to take decisions the best way you can. Yeah. Absolutely.
Here, Carles, and we'll touch upon some of these things in Module 6 for sure, when we look at the sort of governance structures and partnership structures that can be applied in order to cement that co-working, that collaboration that you've very capably described today, Carles. So we're bang on time, an hour and a half. So bravo, and thank you ever so much, Carles. I'll lead with a round of applause. And thank you, Teresa, for hosting. Very well done with the background noise and everything. So
We want to see your children, Teresa, no? Hanging around, yeah.
they're all chained to a desk doing homework.
I am really sorry because it's so late. As you can see, I am still keen for the project after 20 years of marriage. So even so, I am in love with the project and I talk a lot. But I don't know. It's possible if you want to give my email address to the participants. So if some of you when you are stressing out from my talk, you have some questions, I would be really keen to answer it. So please feel free to share my email address if someone wants a Skype talk, or just write me and I will try to write you back and answer your questions if I know how to do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you ever so much, Carles, and we'll certainly do that. And obviously the presentation will be on the Moodle as well. I've been harvesting some links. Tim and FICO shared some links as well, so we'll make that available via Moodle. But yes, so thank you all very much. Take care, keep safe, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Carles.
Thank you.